Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on this class assignment. This is the video for our integration video blog for our class, Orientation to Counselor Professional Identity and Function for COUC 500. Today I will be addressing the questions pertaining to Chapter 4 for our textbook, Counseling Integrating a Christian Worldview. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with the first question here. And the first question is based on the definitions given in the chapter for a Christian counselor, pastoral counselor, lay counselor, biblical counselor, and professional counselor with a Christian worldview. Which of these roles do you currently identify with or aspire to the most? Based on the definition given in the chapter for the different types of counselors, I personally will be working as a professional counselor operating from a Christian worldview. But at the same time, I will be functioning as a Christian counselor because I will not always be functioning at the professional capacity. And I believe that that'll give me some leeway as far as adhering to certain guidelines and ethical guidelines, within the professional standing, and I'll explain. Because I'm not going to be functioning at the professional capacity. Let me just give you a quick example. An example of what I mean would be if my church asked me to do some counseling on behalf of the church, or I volunteer my time at the church. The presumption is that I will be operating from a perspective of a Christian counselor, or I'll have that Christian perspective, unless specified by the church, that they need me to function at the professional level, which will allow me to assess a situation, including a spiritual situation. And I think that to distinguish that difference is important. I think that at the professional level, working for an organization that adheres to APA, ACA, versus where my church will be utilizing me on a more, I want to say like a more personal level. And I think that that's what's going to give me the leeway to work as a Christian counselor. But ultimately, it's a professional counselor operating from a Christian worldview. The second question. What are some issues that you need to pay attention to in your professional development as you navigate between professional counseling and the Christian faith commitments that I have at my church? One of the first issues to pay attention to in my professional development is to balance my worldviews versus my Christian worldviews, meaning to closely adhere to the rules set by the governing bodies of the profession, of course. But not compromising my faith in the process. And I think that that's really important because I do identify very strongly as a Christian, very, very strongly as a follower of Christ. And I don't want to lose that perspective as I'm trying to gain my profession as a counselor. So I think that balancing the professional view and the Christian view is important for me as a counselor, and also for my effectiveness as a counselor and for my counseling skills. And I think that those are the two things that I would say for myself would be things that I have to pay attention to. The next question would be, what do your views align with in an integration model? I consider myself and my style of counseling to be very integrated. And I believe that the Bible and that traditional schools of thought can work together, and they can work off of each other. As an integrationist, I fit into using the allies model, where I believe that model's two points are: all truth is God's truth, and I believe that Christian theology and psychology can coexist. They can inform each other, and they can work off of each other. Unlike, per se, a biblical counselor who believes that the Bible is sufficient enough to cure any ailment and nothing else is required but the Word, my approach, for me, utilizes the fact that God gave man intelligence to utilize the observation of the human experience, which is what psychology is, and use that in tandem with the Bible teachings to effectively help someone. When I did my introduction for the school as well, I put down that in order to treat a person as a whole, we have to consider the spiritual side of that person, regardless of whether it's Christian, whether it's Muslim, whether it's Buddhist, whatever the case may be. But the whole person exists within, a spiritual realm as well. I know that there are clients that are not, there are atheists, and we have to, of course, address them accordingly. But in an aspect to the integration model, that would be the model that I would use, would be the allies model. What challenges, next question. What challenges do you foresee in using an integration model? I think that there are two challenges when using an integrated style of counseling. The first would be finding and utilizing theoretical frameworks that agrees with using faith or spirituality as part of treatment for the client. So we know that psychology in general was not a spiritual, it wasn't created to work with the spiritual. So finding theories like, let's say, Carl Jung archetypes, or Maslow's hierarchy of need, which we can talk about self-actualization, which has a very spiritual connotation to it. Those types of theoretical frameworks that would allow the use of spirituality to be used in counseling. The second would be the appropriateness of using the integrated model without violating ethics, violating the code of ethics proposed by the ACA, like the next question, which is section 8.4.b, about I'm not causing your client any harm. So we're going to go ahead and move on to that question there. And that question is, how might code 8.4.b of the ACA Code of Ethics, which was created in 2014 or revised in 2014, relate to you as you pursue a degree in professional counseling? So first, let's look at what the ACA Code of Ethics 8.4.b says. The topic of the code is avoiding harm and imposing values, and section 8.4.b is personal values, which is what we're focusing on. Counselors, and this is what it says, counselors are aware of and avoid imposing their own values, attitudes, beliefs and behaviors. Counselors respect the diversity of clients, trainees, and research participants and such training in areas in which they are at risk of imposing their values onto clients, especially when the counselor's values are inconsistent with the client's goals and are discriminatory in nature. Of course, we're not going to touch the discriminatory part because, that's really not the focus here, for me at least. And after reviewing section 8.4.b, the implication for me in pursuit of my degree is to be sure that my personal values are consistent with the client's goals. And I think that that's the key part of the sentence there. In my personal, if my personal values differ, then I would have to reassess and make adjustments to my approach while I'm still meeting the client's goals without violating my personal values or my personal views as a Christian. So again, to me, for that particular question, the key is as long as my personal values are consistent with the client's goals. And I'm not saying that they're going to always be consistent, but that would be the key, or at least my opinion. Following question, and it's the last question, the final question, and it's how could you operate as a counselor from a Christian worldview and not impose your own values, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors onto your clients? And I think that operating from a Christian worldview and not imposing my personal values would mean to consider the fundamental principles of autonomy, non-malfeasance, benevolence, justice, fidelity, and veracity, especially when operating within the public domain, meaning that I'm working with a public job, a state job, a government job, working in the public sector in some way, shape, or form. In addition to adherence of the principles, accountability would be the second option, meaning that having an objective person or a supervisor review my cases or conduct a debriefing to make sure that my personal values, my attitudes, my beliefs, and my behaviors are in check. And I think that, to me, getting around getting around that issue of 8.4.b would require that. It would require a supervisor reviewing my cases, and making sure also, which is something that's not topicked here, would be wellness. I want to make sure that I'm in the best of conditions mentally so that I can properly, address my client's issue, whatever my clients bring to the office. So, guys, those are my answers for the questions proposed in the video, for this particular video. I really look forward to you guys watching the video, and I also look forward to seeing video responses. I'm always open-minded like that, and of course, anything that anyone says always is taken into consideration and maybe utilized. You guys have a great one. God bless, and thank you for watching.